One, two, three. Okay, I think this is much better. So, welcome to the rebirth of the Sneaker Principle podcast. I need to have an open conversation with you, because many of you have been asking me for a while about the podcast to the point where people have stopped asking. It's been months off and on of me actually creating this type of content because I've been going through a lot of questioning on the safety of me speaking in this space and being able to speak freely. Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to a medium such as this, where you're not just writing and allowing people to make meaning, but you're speaking and they're seeing your face, your expressions, they're hearing your voice, they're hearing the tone, they're experiencing you in a very visceral, face-to-face manner, whether it's over their phone or computer, or in some cases, I've had people, who I know who've recorded a video of watching me speak on their 80-inch flat screen TVs. And it's humbling that people are willing to engage me in that space, allow me to come into their homes, into their cars, into their offices, and say what I say. However, it's also scary. We live in a world where your words can easily be used against you. I don't think I'm one of those people whose words are misconstrued because I say what I say and I mean what I say. But it doesn't change the fact that as a father of two, as someone who's put years into this profession, that I fall prey to the same feels that many of you do, where you're like very careful about what you say, what you do, who you offend, who you might attract that you don't want to attract, attention from people, whether they're adjacent to you, below you, above you. It's a scary thing, especially when you are creating content that will live beyond you. Because no matter what I put out there, that I might say, you know what, let me delete this. I don't want this to go any further. It's too late. Once it's out there, regardless of what the platform is, it's going to exist somewhere. And the other thing too, people can download that content. They can screen record that content. Guess what? That content is now there. It's now theirs to do whatever they want to do with it. So for that reason, I've always been, one side eye kind of open, watching, nervous. But at the same time, I have to say, creating content and speaking my truth and sharing knowledge and helping as many people as possible has done way more good than it has done bad. I'm proud to say there are leaders out there who've come to me and said, listen, I appreciate you because I saw what you posted and it spoke to me. I've had leaders who said, listen, I saw this content that you posted and I shared it with my staff. I actually played it to my staff. And I said, wow, that's crazy. You mean you took PD time to actually show me, Uchechukwu Lawrence Njoku, talking about whatever I was talking about at that moment in time, that it moved you enough that you said that my team, my staff needs to hear this? That's amazing. But at the same time, it is scary. But one of the things that I've been working on with myself is accepting the fact that it's always going to be scary. But it doesn't change the fact that the work that I do, the work that we do as educators, as leaders, needs to be put out there, needs to be shared, needs to be spoken about. But not just the work, but also bringing voice to things that need to be brought voice to, things that we might not always agree on, things that might bother us about the work, about what we're being asked to do, also about what we're not being asked to do. You know, these things need to be out there because one of the things I think is very interesting is that we tell our kids, our students, not only our students, but even our own children, the ones that we birthed, the ones that came from us, to be fearless, to go into the world and not just survive, but conquer. But if we're going to tell them to do that, then what are we doing? Why are we being yellow bellied? Why are we being riddled with anxiety? When we say we don't want that for our children, we want them to be bold, we want to stand 10 toes down. But us, the adults, the leaders out here, we're not living by the expectations that we're setting forth for the students, for our own children, that we say that we are educating. Tonight's topic is fear. Fear in leadership. Is that a good thing? Is it okay to be a fearful leader? You know what's interesting? As I think about that, being a fearful leader, I have to first define that because there's two sides to this: fear of getting fired and fear of not doing right by the community that you're serving. I know there's other nuances in fear in leadership, but those are the two areas that I live my life in, where I know is um, the most inconsistency in how we lead. How I led as a young leader, how I lead sometimes when when I come across things that triggers me, and I'm like, you know what? If I don't do this, I'm gonna get in trouble. But then also my ability to say, if I do this, it's not right for my community. And if I do it, so that means if I don't do it, I might get in trouble, but I'm willing to be in trouble as long as I know I'm able to explain why and justify why I'm doing what I'm doing, and being able to show the results and the outcomes for my decisions. Because often, as leaders, you find yourself in that situation, scared. Do I do this because so and so told me to do this? Because people who have positional authority are telling you to do something, even though they cannot provide you with clear evidence of why this works. One of my things that I take away from my military experience is when they taught us something, when they give us a strategy, when they said this is how you're going to do this, it was always grounded in historical context. They would tell you during World War II, during Korea, during Vietnam, during the Gulf War, doing these skirmishes and these things, this is how we did it, and it was very effective. It yielded in us winning the battle. It yielded in us having upper hand. And with that, I was always understanding that, okay, this is tried and true. I'm sure over time there were modifications made to the same concept, to the same strategy, but it was tried and true. That's not what I've seen in my career in education. In 20 years, there's been so many times where there's a new thing and then the baby in the bath water is thrown out at the same time, just months later. I think the only thing I can say that's been consistent in my time in New York City schools as far as a policy, a instructional tool has been Danielson. Danielson was not the framework for assessing quality teaching when I first came in. It was something that was brought, I want to say was brought into play sometime around 2008, 2009, maybe 10, but around that time frame. So I remember when I was going through my training to become an assistant principal, and that was around the time when we started training on Danielson. And the fact that it's been now here for over 15 years, or around 15 years, is mind blowing. Because I could name you many programs and many tools and many strategies and this and terminologies that honestly was like everywhere that all of a sudden was not. Some of them just like vanished like that. And I would name some of them, but I don't want to ruffle feathers here. You know what I'm talking about, you know. And some of them come back. Some of them, you know, I reflected upon it. It's like, man, that was a bad idea. Then why are we doing that? Why are we putting things into play that have no relevant historical context of success? Just because it worked out in Willacoochee, Georgia, in 1972, doesn't mean it's going to make sense in New York City in the South Bronx in 2025. You know, and that's just one thing. This whole notion of leading in fear, you know, and not questioning what we're being asked to do. This is something that there has to be a greater conversation around. You know, there has to be spaces for leaders, school leaders, to be part of the conversation and decision-making process. You know, and what's being brought forth to masters of leaders in their school communities that are very, very different. You know, because of something worked very well in you know, somewhere in Queens doesn't mean it's going to work out the same way in the South Bronx or in East New York or Staten Island. Just because it worked out in California, it doesn't mean it's going to work out in New York City, or because it worked out in some you know, mid-sized urban city somewhere out there that's going to have the same output or outcome here. Why are we traveling out to these places to see how things are being done in places that are nothing close to what we are like here in New York? Why are we going to Ohio to say, hey, Ohio, we see you using this tool as yield of success? And their teachers look nothing like our teachers. Their students look nothing like our students. With their communities, where they live, what they go through, look nothing like it. Where their kids come from, immigrant population, nothing. And we're expecting the same results. Education is one of the only fields where, you know, assessing the potential success of a thing is done poorly. It's done poorly. We just want to mirror. And that cannot keep being the case here. There has to be space for leadership to be grounded in historical context. What has worked? What is replicatable in an environment, because this environment is very similar. And we can make adjustments for those things that are not aligned. Leaders, as you're watching this right now, I'm going to challenge you. Stop just accepting things as they are and question. In the military, we talk about unlawful orders. They are lawful and unlawful. The unlawful are the ones that you know are counter to what the law says, to what makes sense, to what is right. Those are the unlawful. Lawful are the ones where you know, okay, listen, you don't have to ask, you don't have to question it. We know this is historically correct. This is what we do. And this is how we move until it is adjusted as something that doesn't work anymore. Or that is archaic. And we have to approach what we do for our schools and our communities the same way. Does this make sense? Leadership above us lowly, trench, trench soldiers. Create a space for us to be able to be part of that conversation in an authentic way. Have more gathering of leaders. Have more symposiums, more spaces where we can give feedback, ask the hard questions, demand of our vendors who come and try to tell us, but they have no clue. They've never worked in our spaces, they've never engaged our students, they've never engaged our communities, our parents. They don't even know what it feels like, what it even feels like to live in the environments in which we lead in. People often ask me, why do you think you're effective as a school leader? And I say, because for me personally, I lived in the projects. I grew up in the hood. I know what it feels like to be hopeless, to be hungry, to be cold, to be scared, to be terrified. I'm talking about to be terrified, not in one instance, but on a daily basis. Then to eventually develop such a thick skin that a gunshot meant nothing to me. It was just another sound in the environment. To hear about death meant nothing to me because it was just another situational experience that was expected. And thank God for my teachers in my community in Inglewood, California, La Tejera Middle School, Inglewood High School, who helped us, who peeled those layers of scars and trauma and helped us envision something greater because they understood. They went through the same thing and were walking, living examples of what the possibilities were. My teachers, my principals, even the superintendent. Listen, my first superintendent that I knew his name was Dr. George McKenna. Yeah, Dr. George McKenna. There's a movie called The George McKenna Story. And I think it was one of Denzel Washington's earliest leading roles. And that was my superintendent. And it's about him as a principal turning the school around. It's funny. Because I made a career out of being a turnaround principal. I never even thought about that. But you see how powerful that is? Dr. George McKenna, I only shook his hand once. When he came to visit our school, shook his hand once. I mean, I was probably in 9th or 10th grade. Maybe through osmosis, he passed something in that handshake energy. It planted a seed in me that's put me into where I'm at today. But again, being fearless leaders, being able to say, hey, this is what is needed in this community. And if I'm not sure, if I'm not from that community, I go to the community. I tap into them. So I am a representative for them at Central, in the glass offices, in the ivory towers that are often so far removed from what's happening on the ground. All right, this is longer than I expected. It's already 20. It's been a 20-minute rant. I'll be honest with you. This was just me turning on the computer to just do a quick practice run. It's been a while, And I think I might post this. And I hope this helps someone. And if you watch this and you're mad at me, oh well. Because what matters to me are the children, the parents, the community that I serve. And I hope that everything that I do is in their best interest. And I hope that the faith that they have in me as their principal, as a school leader, as a community leader, that I do right by it. All right, y'all. It's Uche Njoku, Snicker Principal. And till next time, be well.